Welcome, everybody, back here at Veil of Sound for one of those nice little middle of a week interviews that we like to give you every now and then if we find something that really interests us, that excites us. And this time I can say that I found, again, one of those little underground gems that we love to present here. And I'm very happy to have the duo behind Chimehours here. So, John, Rebecca, thanks for joining.
Our pleasure. Thanks for having us.
For having us.
You're welcome. I have to say that I did not know either of you before our good friend Dan from Discipline PR gave me the link and said, just listen to it, you will like it. And as I know that the guy has a good taste in music, I listened to it, I liked it, I looked up some of it. And this is your debut. So first of all, of course, we have to ask, how did the two of you get together?
We've been working together ages, haven't we, John? I think to start with, it was when I was doing some kind of solo indie folk releases and invited John to be part of the band within that, doing some kind of adding some weirdness and ghostliness and what we called wonky flourishes at the time. And we've just collaborated ever since, haven't we?
Yeah, definitely. We've been working together for years, I think. Different stuff. Like we've got a grunge band that is currently a bit dormant. We work on a lot of commercial projects together, stuff for TV and film, things like that. But this is something that we've sort of had on the back burner for a while. But it's definitely a passion project. But
it's kind of the thing that we've always wanted to make together, and it's taken a long time for it to just kind of hit the right moment for us. And so it feels like so many ideas that we've kind of talked about and toyed with over years and years have just kind of like come to fruition. It's like they kind of came out of the earth in their own way.
It's interesting that John already said, like, okay, it's been a long time. Both of you say that. In one of your band bios, I've read that Burns Night seems to have been an important part for forming Chimehours. Correct me if I'm wrong with Burns Night. Isn't that the night for Robert Burns, the Scottish poet?
Yeah, that's right. And there's a tradition of reading poetry aloud on that night over candlelight and having a lovely meal of haggis and neeps and tatties. And
I don't know if haggis is like a lovely meat, but anyway, go on.
It was
delicious.
haggis. It was really delicious.
I believe it can be. But please tell us. So the idea for Chimehours came after Burns Night?
Well, so we were reading poetry aloud, and one of the things that I read aloud to John was an excerpt from a book called Lanny by an author called Max Porter, who I'm a big fan of. His work is absolutely beautiful. It's so kind of original and haunted, and but not kind of in a stereotypical way. It just feels like these stories come from somewhere else, and he presents them in a very original way in the way it's kind of even down to how it's laid out on the page. So it has a kind of visual feel, and it feels like it kind of brings in music and visuals to the text. So I was reading some of that aloud to John, and he loved it too. And we started talking about there's a film that's going to be made of Lanny, and this was quite a while ago, and we were like, oh, wouldn't it be great to write the soundtrack to that? And then we just thought, well, why don't we just sketch some demos out and then kind of imagine what this book might feel like as a music soundtrack, and how would we create the soundscape for this world that Lanny, the central character, is a young boy called Lanny in a kind of English rural village. How would we create the soundtrack to that? What would be in it? What kind of songs would be in it? What kind of characters would come out of the earth to join in? So it kind of stemmed from that, the reading aloud, and I feel like it was like a kind of invocation. It was like this little spell of its own. When we started reading aloud, it cemented this idea for us that we wanted to create this piece of music, and we weren't sure how it would sound.
Yeah, I think
to begin with, it was just an EP, wasn't it, John?
Yeah, and I think there was something about that sort of crystallized something, that because I think we talked a long time about, because we love horror films and folklore tales. We're always keen to like soundtrack something like that. But something about that reading and that particular book really crystallized this idea of like, it really gave us a focus for this sort of idea of a project, which became Chimehours, yeah.
And as things kind of drifted over time, it would give us a central focus to come back to, wouldn't it? We could reread the book, or we could talk again about, but what are the themes and the characters? What is this setting? What is the feeling that we get when we are in this space? It was a really good center point for us.
So the movie that you mentioned that was in production, has it ever been finished? Has it ever been released?
Not that we've seen.
Well, interestingly, they have made a film of his first book, isn't it, Beck? The Grief Has a Thing with Feathers, which I think was that did the festivals last year. So we don't know if because of that this got shelved, or who knows really. I'm sure maybe it'll appear at some point. But we had.
If they want to use the music, it's right there ready.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I wanted to say. Yes. So when you say you were so inspired by this book and the way that it presents ideas and characters and storytelling, there is something about the record where I say, okay, I'm not really sure what is more important, the story or stories being told in the 12 songs, plus the second version of one of them. I don't know what is more important, the stories being told or the musical adaptation of it. Let's first make clear what came first, the music or the lyrics to the songs?
So I don't think it's not strictly an adaptation. It's more that the feeling inspired the music, and the connection to the other kind of music that we love from folk horror and those kinds of worlds came together. And I think it was very much a back and forth, wasn't it, John? Because we kind of put together some ideas in the studio. I remember I was kind of doing some a cappella improvisations. You were doing some little bits on a synth, and we started to kind of pull things together, and did some folky guitar bits, and you would pass some guitar bits over to me in my studio, and I would improvise some vocals over the top, and we would kind of sketch it in that way as a back and forth. So it wasn't that we were kind of following the book and trying to adapt exactly what was happening in the book or anything like that. It was more that it tapped into a sense of something within us and a sense of place. And we kept coming back to that as a way to, okay, let's sit down and kind of write a feeling of a melody, or write a snippet of something and then develop it together remotely. Is that how you remember it, John? It's been happening over a while now, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. That sounds bang on. I mean, I think like there's so much imagery in that book that really sort of triggers sort of emotions and atmospheres, and it was just sort of fun using those as a launch pad, and and that's why I feel like it's turned out as it is, because it's a sort of strange mix of sort of cinematic folk, but then those really sludgy guitars, sort of trying to recreate the earthiness and the smell of that.
We definitely got dirtier and dirtier with it over time, didn't we? So it started out quite sweet, and then we were like, oh yeah, but there's also this kind of something coming out of the earth, or there's this something that we can't quite put our finger on, and what does that something sound like? And as John started to bring in some more distorted guitars, it really felt like this was a good match. There was something between like the ethereal elements that we were creating with the more delicate vocals than I would usually do often. So there was this kind of ethereal texture and like a lacing of atmosphere, and then there's this real deep, dark, growly something that's also like at the underbelly of it all. And we felt like by the time we reached the end of what we'd got to a full album at this point, and that felt like at that point there was the right balance of these really deep, dark things and these really gentle, beautiful things too.
That connects a little bit to what I was thinking. I mean, like the record is already called Underneath the Earth. I felt as if we here have characters who are trying to reconnect with all of our roots, isn't that?
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. And I think that's so, it's more and more important in the sort of modern age, isn't it? I think it's easy to just get lost in the city and away from nature. And I feel like there's always something in the earth that sort of draws you back. And it's sort of wonky and dirty and messy. And yeah, it was a lot of fun sort of somehow saying that.
And in the book, there's a child that gets lost, and there's a rural village who's kind of looking for him, and this kind of green man revenant character that comes out of the woods or is kind of disembodied, and you're never quite sure where it is. And I think that for us, that kind of represented this feeling that we have of there's something that we can't quite place about our heritage, about our roots, about both John and I grew up in rural communities and have lived in urban communities since, and you can't ever quite escape that the kind of hold that the land can have over you, that the sense of past can have over you, that connection with nature always stays with you, and there's a yearning for it, I think. And so that's definitely something that we were able to express within this. There's that kind of creaky character of a dead Papa Toothwort who's kind of always there behind the scenes, whatever else is going on, and can see things over a longer length of time. Like he sees years and years and years and years, and we're just a little blip on that time scale. And I think we really felt that.
It's also interesting because I'm like underneath the earth can also be a very clear and simple metaphor for underneath our skin, inside ourselves, because that's also something that I felt when listening to the record. I have a feeling as if things inside are being reassembled, are being put together again in a new and better form. Is that something where you say, okay, here the record definitely also speaks about something more, something personal?
That's really interesting that you pick up on that. And I think there's something for me, John. I don't know if there is for you, but for me, I actually became a parent during the time we were making that. And I felt like, as I reread Lanny after that, there's quite a lot of themes within that of the parents not quite knowing how to make sense of this child who's very esoteric and different, and but I think everyone's child can feel like that to them, that you always trying to work out who they are and who you are in context of them. And so actually there's quite a lot of the songs were written after that point and some written before, and I definitely personally was making sense of that there's another sense of being totally lost in the woods when you become a parent and you're having to find yourself again. And actually that connection to nature and to something that is older and longer and cyclical definitely helped me through that phase of like trying to find myself again within this new role of motherhood. I don't know about you, John, whether there was anything personal within that too.
I'm very sure John hasn't had any experiences with motherhood.
I guess. I mean, yeah, I'm not a parent personally, but like aging, for example, is something that that we all have to battle with. So perhaps, yeah, it was such an interesting comment you made. And I think on reflection, yeah, there's definitely an element of that. Just coming to terms with mortality, like all art try's to do, right? It's kind of ultimately about that sort of thing.
The life in death. And like people, we've both lost people, and everyone's lost people, and that was something that I felt like we were able to talk about through this music, John, to one another, and while making it, to bring up those things and those connections of the sense of people that lingers beyond the time that you have with them, and our bodies go back to the earth. And then they give life to new life. So there was all that sense as well that like ultimately it all comes back down to the earth, and this is what's coming back out of it in all different kind of magical ways.
Yeah, it's the everlasting cycle. Now you've already mentioned that some of these songs or some of the material has been created during the pandemic. Now that again is already 3 years ago. How and why did it happen that the record is only coming out now in October?
Mm-hmm. It just took its time. I don't feel like we were in control over this. I feel like it just needed time to sit sometimes, and then we would come back to it, and then we would reconnect with it, and then we work on different things. But it just wouldn't go away. It wouldn't leave us. It was the one thing that kind of run as a true thread through all of this. I mean, there was the pandemic, and there was, I had a child, and there were a lot of personal life things that got in the way, as well as work life things. And but it stood really true. Like it felt like, well, this must be a strong idea, because it won't leave us. It's somewhere that we always come back to. I don't know about you, John. What do you think? Why did it take us so long?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think because, as we say, it was originally an idea kind of for a film, but then I sort of kept going back to it and being like, oh, this stuff's so good. Like, what can we do with it? And eventually sort of like compiled what we had together and sent it to Justin at Cold Spring, just on a whim, really. And he loved it. And to be fair, that actually gave us like, just suddenly we had this burst of energy, and then wrote another like 4 or 5 songs to finish the album, because it was quite a short collection originally. And we'd already sort of started messing around with ideas for which will probably make up the second album, but by that point. But there was something about this particular collection of ideas that needed just a few more tracks, and actually they're some of my favorite songs, the last few that we added as well, because there's a real sort of energy in it and excitement to it.
And Justin and Cold Spring, there was really so much freedom, which we appreciated, in terms of how we wanted to present it and how we wanted to deliver it. And I think that was part of what allowed us to go a bit further with the guitars, with the grunginess to it, with really exploring, okay, we've got an outlet for this, and they're being really supportive. So how about we try this, and how about we try that? So yeah, it found its home.
I guess it's also a way that, of course, let's be clear, this record will not turn you into Robbie Williams owning a property next to, Jimmy Page. So, I mean, like, you've also have to make the buck to keep on living, of course. We've talked about, the literary influences. Are there particular musical influences where you say, like, okay, we didn't copy and we didn't do a cover, but these are definitely people that we look up to, that influences?
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah,
you've got strong ones there, John. I know. I mean, Cocteau Twins we always come back to, but where else? I think the happy thing is that it overlapped a lot of. I've got some gentler, folkier influences, as well as loving like rockier, grungier music. But John, you've got the underbelly. Really, you produced the album mainly. So what would?
I think it was our shared love of that crossover between like delicate, more shoegazy stuff like Cocteau Twins. But for this, for some reason, I was just like really inspired by Jóhann Jóhannsson's soundtrack for Mandy, where he used the guitarist from Sun O, and there's just something about that soundtrack that just I love, and I love that band anyway. And I was like, oh, if we can combine that with Beck's amazing voice, that would make me happy. and for me, there's something really special about that combination.
And I think we're always we would share things with one another, wouldn't we, where we're like, oh, listen to this, and it would be something like Broadcast, where it's not perfect and there's a kind of some glitchiness or weirdness happening in it, that we're like, this is great, we don't want it to be polished and perfect, we want it to have these things that kind of appear like artifacts however they like to. But then also, I've got a long history of loving, like Joni Mitchell and 70s folk artists, and there's definitely some of that in there, and there's Nick Drake, and there's the English pastoral, and I think the the influences really range. And I think that's what happens in film soundtracks. That's part of what we love about film soundtracks, is that they somehow can often manage to pick from quite wide across the music catalogue, because they can trace the theme that's at the core of these pieces of music and that brings it together. And I think that's what we were able to do with this, because it had such a key central theme. We were able to pull across from quite wide ranging things that we love in music, to pull them to something that connects them.
And I also really love like textures in music, especially sort of warped, wonky, like tapey stuff, like Boards of Canada and Bibio. And I really love sort of that combination worked really well with the subject matter and the sounds that we were working with. So hence there's quite a few elements of that in there, hopefully, as well in the album.
There is one part of a record, or there's one element of a record that to me is like a red thread going through all of it. And here I have to ask a producer. Most of the songs have a certain kind of earthy feeling, as if there was like one passage underneath it all that one cannot make out, but it feels as if it's coming right out of the earth. Maybe I'm just going deaf, could also be. But is there something where you say, okay, this element in a way connects the songs with each other?
I think it's drones, isn't it? It's an elongated something, that there'll be a tone or there'll be a something that we've created as a base, and then other things are decoration. I don't know what you think, John.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's bang on. I think yeah, and again, it's really interesting you're saying that. That makes me happy, because I feel like there is a sort of, yeah, and that goes with a lot of folk music, doesn't it? Those older British folk music, for instance, a lot of it's on things like hurdy-gurdies and accordions, and it's just got this kind of almost ominous drone that slightly kind of fills me with dread, but I love it as well, and I hope that's in the album as well.
And often it's a breathy one. So we use harmonium and we use things that have got like so there's already quite a lot of tone and resonance that's deep, that almost like sets your bass line. There's your soil. And then everything else, you can go dirty or you can go lighter from there.
And then there is something that is very audible, because it's Beck's voice or Becca's voice. It gives a lot of the songs, apart from the content, it gives them a kind of nearly ritualistic idea, because it's very ethereal. Having listened to some of your older tracks, where of course that is the sound of your voice, but I had the feeling as if on this record there's even more fairiness like to it. Was it something that you were aiming for? Like, okay, make it even lighter, floatier?
Yeah. It was quite freeing, actually, because I knew that the voice would for a lot of the time be used as a texture more than, they weren't quite song-based songs. It wasn't the same. And I love that. I love being able to play just with sound and knowing that there's just freedom and space and air. And because we were thinking cinematically rather than, we weren't making songs for the radio, it gave me space to then just be playful with where I sang. And we definitely listened to things like so we both absolutely love The Wicker Man, and that's a big touch point for this. And often in those kinds of films, there'll be the sort of ritualistic songs, the nursery rhyme type songs that loop. And it definitely wanted to bring some element of that in, where rather than the songs always progressing and having a, verse, chorus, here's a song, here's a loop, a melody idea, and let's just loop it and see where we go with it, and it becomes like a chant. And that's definitely something we talked about, wasn't it, John? Having that idea of chant like.
Yeah, definitely. And I think again, maybe it was like partly the broadcast influence, because a lot of her vocals are sort of sound like they come from the ether, and they're these like almost inhuman, like beautiful size and things like that. And I think I love it when soundtracks sort of use those textures as well. So yeah.
Yeah, and somebody else that I should mention actually who really has influenced me is Petronella Netamam from Patos, who her vocals she can go from very light and delicate and beautiful to really singing out and gnarly, but still beautiful and haunted. And I went on tour with Patos some years ago and was able to see them night after night singing live on stage, and I just could. It changed how I saw a woman in music, I think, at that point, because I could see how delicate vocals could exist in this was a prog band. And it was all beautiful and gorgeous, but it was not just feminine in the sense of being sweet. It was a really amazing balance, and I think I definitely drew from that as well for this record.
Yeah, there is something to that I can understand. You've now mentioned your love for movies so often, so I want both of you to choose one movie that you would like to rescore.
Oh.
I think
I know that's really tough.
for me, I think can I have two?
Nope.
Actually, no, because I was going to say there's one called Beyond the Black Rainbow by Panos Cosmatos, but actually the soundtrack to that is amazing, so I couldn't better that. So I'd say Phase 4, which is a 1970s kind of sci-fi thing about ants. It's brilliant, and by Saul Bass, and the soundtrack again is quite synthy, but I'd love to redo it in a slightly different way.
Mm-hmm.
It's an amazing the visuals on that film are amazing, like really 70s weird. Yeah.
I agree with John that it's difficult because the films that we love are often the ones that have got amazing soundtracks. So I wouldn't necessarily rescore them, but I would love to.
So then it must be something like Ed Wood, right? Like the worst movies ever made.
Oh yeah, what a great idea. I was going to say something like Picnic at Hanging Rock, where doing a kind of female take on that now would be a really cool thing to do, or scoring like the new Nosferatu, and having chance to have space to work with that kind of black and white cinematography would be really cool. But yeah, I mean,
we would have done a better
Carpenter
job.
one would be great to do, but that's very much dictated already by the score.
Would you agree that sometimes it's difficult to reimagine movies that are not that much score based, but where they use a lot of songs from the original eras? One of my favorite movies comes to my mind, Mr. Holland's Opus, which goes through from the 60s to all the way to the 90s, and they always use contemporary songs. I think those movies are or would be harder to score because it's not one ongoing thing.
True, yeah. Yeah, like I guess for some reason popped into my head, but The Big Lebowski, like brilliant soundtrack, all very, all great songs.
Yeah, a lot of the Tarantino movies are the same, hard to score.
Yeah.
I think this is like the expertise of music supervisors as well, isn't it? Is that I always really appreciate when someone's really curated a lot of music that you wouldn't imagine to put together, and they just fit beautifully. And so then that has to tie in with how somebody is scoring the undercurrent of the film as well, and the compositional elements. Yeah. Art.
Yeah, I mean, like in all of those movies that we've now mentioned, there is, of course, not only think of also, for example, Forrest Gump. It's not just song after song after song. There is a score to these movies, but we just don't recognize it because of all of the songs, right? It's like, yeah, that's difficult. Something that came to me, and that is this idea of the green man, or the green man figure. Would you say that there is also some kind of ecological awareness aspect to it?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I don't think we did that consciously, but I think by its nature, it's kind of, as we say, it's like songs kind of about sort of rediscovering the importance of the earth and our connection to it. So sort of automatically, I guess there's definitely an element of that in there. What do you think, Beck?
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's also a sense of loss that is within the album. And I think that chimes with this the feeling of how nature is considered and not considered today, and how integral it is to all of us as beings on the earth. And I guess, the connection to kind of past peoples who were much more reverent of that and much closer to that and much more understanding of that. And so this toothwort character in the book is ages old and has seen different types of peoples and has seen peoples who have lost touch with nature and kind of pay for it. And we're in a period now where that's happening. We're paying for our past inconsideration and our current inconsideration of nature. So it's kind of twofold. It's that kind of loss of a potentially idealized past. I mean, I live, and then also the connection to nature, it really inspires you musically and inspires you to create. So I'd often walk in nature to get back in touch with where I'd want to go. But where I live is near the Peak District, and that's a total stramash of amazing nature, glorious nature, and like the heart of the Industrial Revolution. So there's those two things that sit side by side all the time. That it's you never far away from the kind of gouging out of the landscape, but that's all part of what shapes who we are today as well, and how civilization has developed. So yeah, absolutely, I would say that's always an underpinning of myself anyway. That's that tension between natural and kind of man-made, and where are we going with it.
So interesting. There are so many levels to this record, and I can only give out a shout to Dan for introducing me to you guys. However, nobody leaves the Veil of Sound interview without going through our quick fire round at the end. I will always give you two alternatives, and you have to choose. And when we were talking about the ritualistic aspect or the chanting aspect, I'll give you two bands that are very well known for it. And you have to decide between Heilung and Wardruna.
I think I've only heard Heilung, the first one. So I'll go with that.
Okay. You've mentioned a certain love for grunge, and I will not give you the obvious like Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Soundgarden. I'll give you two bands from the second row of amazing bands from Seattle. Mudhoney versus the Screaming Trees.
Oh.
I'll go Soundgarden.
No. That's not in the equation.
Okay.
I liked Screaming Trees as a teenager because of the melodies, but I would probably go Mudhoney now.
John?
Yeah, agreed.
This one is for both of you, but it is more of a connection to Beck. Your voice has some of the ethereal qualities that Björk has, and therefore I'll give you the debut versus homogenic.
Oh, that's easy.
Well, I would always go with debut because I feel like when you do a debut album, it's something that emerges from you, that is your first ever chance to let it come. And I think I always find those albums fascinating because it's like you finally get the chance to put something down on record. What are you going to do?
Well, homogenic for me, I just feel like it's like really atmospheric, and like the electronics on that record to me are absolutely amazing. I love that record. Sorry, Beck.
Again, something that you've also mentioned. You've mentioned the Cocteau Twins and the certain shade of shoegaze. So I'll give you the Cocteau Twins versus Slowdive.
Oh, that's just cruel.
I'm a teacher. I'm being paid for being mean.
That's like choosing between your children. That's really hard.
I don't know what your children will say when they once find out that mom compared them to musical.
Yeah, everyone has a favorite kid, I think, don't they?
Can we have one each?
I have a favorite kid because I only have one. No.
I think I'm going to point blank refuse to choose between those two.
John,
I think I would go Cocteau Twins because I think they're sort of, there's something a bit weirder about them, and there's sort of more to explore. I feel like Slowdive, you know what you're getting, which is great, but
well, then I'll take Slowdive because I think just seeing women in music presented in different ways is amazing, and they're still doing great shows now. And I think they've had like this resurgence that's giving them chance to have an extra, bring something different and new again to shoegaze. So yeah, Slowdive are awesome too. So I'll go Slowdive.
For the next two, I came up with couples, one from Britain and one from the US each. Let's start with the males. Nick Drake versus Simon and Garfunkel.
Oh, Nick Drake all day.
Oh, so good. I'll say Nick Drake too, because I just love the English pastoral and this kind of introvert who somehow managed to get his songs out in a way that has perpetuated, and he never really got a chance to know.
And also his guitar playing is just so brilliant and so unique.
Would you say
Can't say that about Art Garfunkel.
Would you say that Paul Simon is not good on his instruments?
Oh, no, he is.
Probably he stole all that from the British.
He has lots of good musicians around him.
Yeah, that's true. The next one, Joan Baez versus Joni Mitchell. That should be easy, shouldn't it?
Oh, Joni Mitchell all the way.
Yeah, agreed.
I have two more. Do you want to do the music one first or the pop culture?
Pop culture. Let's get that out of the way.
I don't know why, but listening to some of your tracks and reading up on some of the lyrics, I had a creepy kind of true crime feeling. It was like...
Oh, good.
So I'll give you two serial killers. The Son of Sam versus Zodiac Killer.
Well, did they ever catch the Zodiac Killer?
No. They think they have an idea who it is nowadays, but if that is true, then the guy's dead.
I'd pick him for the for the mystery.
Yeah, same. And also because I've watched that film like 3 times now, and I've still never really properly managed to work it out.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that is also intentional by Fincher, because of course, if one was watching the movie and had an idea of who it was, well, then it's kind of absurd because in reality, they didn't, right? Okay, the last music one, and this is for the earthy sound without drones. I'm not sure if you both can choose between Neurosis and Yope.
I actually don't know either of those people. I'm sorry.
That's what I was worried about.
I'm so sorry. We'll look them right up.
Yeah, I feel like we've got some homework now.
We have.
Remember, I'm a teacher. So, Rebecca, John, thanks for all your time. Thanks for the great music. For everybody out there, remember, in a week from now, Underneath the Earth will be out via Cold Spring Records. It's a wonderful blend of some harsh post-industrial sounds and very ethereal music and a wonderful voice and a great production. So please check it out in a week. For you two, thanks for all your time and enjoy the rest of your day.